So hey everybody, today I'm joined by lovely Gemma Dunleavy, who is a singer, producer and filmmaker from Dublin, and a dancer of course. Gemma released her debut EP this summer called Up the Flats, and is just breaking amazing ground, and everyone's obsessed with her at the moment, so we're really excited to have her on with us today. So the first question I'm going to get underway with is just, how did you get into music?
I think I was involved in music from when I was like around 6. I was just really obsessed with singing and songs. I loved pop songs, and so Stephen Gately lived around the corner from me. His ma and dad knew my ma and dad from growing up, and it was from very early on. I felt like it was possible for me to for me to be in that realm because someone from where I was from was doing that. And I guess from then I just kept singing, for whether it was like standing on the fireplace and singing a few songs, or I eventually started singing lessons and just to have an outlet of singing every week, because you can't really there's not really singing classes the way, because I did dance classes. So yeah, I started doing that, and then I've just been singing since.
Unreal. And so you sing and you produce and everything. Did you like just naturally come into playing music yourself, or?
No, I didn't naturally come into playing music at all. That was something that I struggled with. I'm very much, I like to do everything myself. I don't like to be relying on other people for doing stuff. And I didn't particularly like playing the guitar, but I picked it up because I wanted to be able to accompany myself without relying on someone. So I really struggled with the guitar for my teenage years. Like, I don't know, there was a few times where it really ended up in a few pieces, trying to hold a bar chord, or playing those 4 chords and like waiting to be able to sing a song until you eventually held a chord. Like, there was a lot of that. But I used to actually just record. Like, I used to listen to Hot FM, and I'd record like, the songs that they'd be playing, and then I'd then sing over the tape, make my own songs like that. And then I just got into like playing and stuff. Now, once I kind of broke through that barrier of being able to, understand an instrument, I loved it. But I really struggled. I wanted to be able to accompany myself straight away, and as we know, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, that took a while, fair enough. You're flying now though, to be fair. So. And you said you went to dance classes, was it, when you were younger? Yeah. And you've trained, like, you've done a lot of training as a dancer.
Yeah.
So do you think that experience, like training and learning dancing and everything, do you think that has influenced the music you make, or?
I don't really know. I'd imagine it did, because dance was such a big part of my life. Like, I danced from when I was 5 up until 19. Like, and that was, I still dance now, but like, I danced full time up until I was 19, and I danced professionally until I was 19. So it was a huge part of my life. I think it trickles into every part of my life, because the discipline that I had from such a young age. Like, I was dancing, some days I would dance. Some parts of my life I was dancing every day of the week except for Sundays, because I had competitions on Sundays. So I still would be dancing on Sundays. I just wasn't training. Yeah. So that level of discipline does kind of so much to be learned from it. And I often wonder, does it, like, I love making a lot of, and this is like something that probably a lot of people don't know, but I love making instrumental stuff. I love making soundscapes, and I actually composed the score for my first dance piece over in Luxembourg a couple of years ago, and that was amazing. I love doing stuff like that where I don't use my voice, and I think a lot of that does come from dance. Sometimes I would go to a dance class and I'd come home and that like movement would influence what I would make, and it was really useful for me whenever I had creative writing blocks, because I'd go to a dance class and I would just respond to the movement in music, and that would all of a sudden any kind of creative block that I was having would be gone. Wouldn't necessarily be writing stuff, but I would be composing, and when I say writing, I mean lyrics, but I would be composing, and that it I feel like it was another avenue for me to get out of any ruts that I might get into.
Cool, that's so interesting. Would you ever think of releasing any of those soundscape pieces?
Probably, yeah. I feel like I would, but I would want to do a hell of a lot of work on the mixing and the mastering end of them, you know. So maybe at some point, I've always thought, like, you know, something that I always kind of have in the back of my mind is I want to do an instrumental release at some point. Maybe I'll do it under an alias or something like that. But it would feel like it would be a real it would be a real kind of personal goal of mine, I think, to do that, or just to finish it. You know, but then again, when I make stuff like that, it's all very, very selfish. Sorry, the breeze is blowing me down. Oh, it's not the breeze, it's my dog. My dog say hello. Yeah, this is her. I'll you know, while she's here. So yeah, we say a little hello and now off you go. So yeah, I mean, like, when I'm making that stuff, I feel like it's all very selfish, because it's you know, there's nothing there for people to relate to, and that's universal. That's me, Matt, getting the dog out. Jesus. Yeah. So yeah, I think like whenever I make that stuff, it always feels, you know, there's less there for people to hang on to, you know, than there would be me songs and me more pop related stuff. So I guess I don't feel a need to share it, because I feel like maybe there's less to gain from it for other people than my actual songs, because there's stories in there and it's a lot more universal and relatable. So I do feel quite selfish with that other stuff. I make it just for me. It's kind of just an outlet, and it conveys exactly how I feel in sonic form. So I guess I kind of think, well, maybe it's not useful to anyone else, but maybe down the line I will.
Yeah, who knows, in later years. So you kind of touched on your creative process there. Like, in general, do you have a like plan that you follow? Like, start off with lyrics, start off with the music? What's your general process?
No, I kind of just, you know, I just kind of go with whatever, and whatever happens. Sometimes, I mean, like, mostly I'm writing all the time, like, you know, words and stuff. Like, I write a lot of poetry, and I do a lot of kind of just free writing, and sometimes it's just voice notes, me rambling, you know, into my phone, and then I'll sit down and do kind of structured work on chords and melody. So sometimes I'll set out 20-minute or half-hour blocks where I just play and I leave my recorder on. And most of the time I'll patch them together. I'll come up with a melody, and then I'll go into my phone and look whatever. And then sometimes it's heavy on my mind, so I'll remember the stuff that I've written down that resonated with me. And then other times it's just, you know, you're in the shower and a whole chorus will come to you, melody, lyrics, everything. So I'd say kind of whatever I can grasp, I just kind of take, because yeah, whenever I have one way of working, it always changes up, you know. I'm somebody who I don't like things being predictable, and I like to be surprised. So having that kind of having those various avenues of working really, yeah, is very important to me. Being able to tap into different ways. I've loads of different ways that I kind of, you know, thankfully I don't really ever suffer from writer's block, but I have many ways to help myself if I ever do, because I've loads of different ways that I work, whether it's like, you know, if I'm not feeling like any type of way, or, you know, I'm not feeling anything enough to write a song about, sometimes I'll just create a character, and I'll be like, right, where are we today? What movie are we in? What's the setting? What's the scene? Where do we live? What do we feel? Are we going to a club? Are we feeling down in the dumps?
Yeah.
And I'll become that character and write a song, and eventually I can find a way to relate it back to myself, whether it's changing a few lyrics here and there. So yeah, it's kind of whatever I can grasp, really, you know.
That's cool. So you have so many different ways that you could, like, different avenues that you come at it. Very cool. A lot of musicians probably wouldn't have that much to say. So in terms of your musical influences, would you say that there's like the front row musical influences influences, or is it kind of just depends on your mood or depends on the time?
I think my songwriting, and when I first started like composing chords and putting words together with that, like as in, I think I wrote some of my first songs when I was probably around 7, just over beats I'd recorded off the radio. And when I first started playing the guitar and stuff, I was really influenced by Laura Marling and Johnny Flynn, two kind of like acoustic folk musicians from the UK. I loved Fionn Regan as well, who's an Irish singer songwriter. Because I was relating to them because they were also people who held a guitar and were writing just with their guitar. But really, like my the stuff that I enjoyed singing, like I loved Destiny's Child. I loved I loved loads of old soul, and I grew up kind of with an amalgamation of all styles. But when I was songwriting, I found it really hard to play the guitar, I guess because I couldn't play bar chords and I couldn't really play stuff that felt really soulful. So I was writing a little bit more with my storytelling at the forefront. So I would say I was influenced an awful lot in terms of songwriting by the likes of those artists. And then I feel like I have different genres and artists that influence me in different ways. Like when I'm composing or whenever I'm writing vocals, like a huge influence for me is Beach Boys. Like Brian Wilson's one of like the most incredible musicians, one of the most inspiring artists to me of all time. And it goes without saying that Beyonce, I just absolutely love Beyonce. Like I feel like I could go on and on,
Yeah.
And then I also love a lot of like noise artists. Is like a sound designer slash music concrete artist called Valerio Tricoli. He's an Italian composer, and he does kind of like sound design, but it's so intricate and incredible. I really like an artist called Grouper who does more ambient stuff. Just I feel like I just might as well and not answer that because I'm just reading off loads. But these are artists that I constantly go back to. Some days I'm in the mood to listen to straight up pop, like or I just love putting on like Girl by Destiny's Child, or some really old Destiny's Child stuff. And sometimes I'll want to listen to just straight up like sound design, like or concrete, which is like where I'll dip into Valerio Tricoli. It's kind of I guess that's what inspires me production as well, is the mixture of both.
Yeah, massive contrast there, which is really cool to see, and you see it translated into your music, which is deadly. So kind of closer to home at the moment, do you have any Irish artists or up and coming artists that you're really liking at the moment, or that you think are great?
Oh God, I'm put on the spot now.
Apart from yourself, of course, but is there anybody in the Irish scene that you're kind of like?
For Those I Love is an artist I'm really resonating with right now. He just released he has an album coming out. He just released a song and a video, and he just performed on Jules Holland there. And honestly, like for me, something that I really find appealing in music is authenticity. Like I don't care if it just has 2 instruments in it, but if it feels honest and raw, like I'll listen to that over something that is hyper modern and trendy and whatever. Although I still love that stuff. I love pop music. Like I love it. It's my sugar, I just love it. But like there's a real kind of, it's very hard to differentiate or to find authenticity in music right now. And there's an awful lot of this kind of leaning towards and emphasizing and digging out any part of this like working class. It's cool to be working class now, and there's an awful lot of this. And I feel like when I find something that's raw and honest and just vulnerable, but also really harsh, as For Those I Love, it makes me never want to let it go, And like, it's mad because I listened to that. He has a mix on YouTube, and I listened to it, once, and I find this so gripping, right? That I listened to the whole thing once front to back, and then I'll dip in and I'll only listen to a minute here and there because it just grabs me in like almost too much. But I mean that in a good way. That I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is so like I resonate so much with everything that album and release talks about, that it's almost like it's so sensitive to me that I have to, like, I listen to a few minutes of it and then I'll turn it off and I'll put on, a bit sugar, like I'll put on some Destiny's Child or something, but that will resonate with me for the day, and that just is a credit to how raw and earnest it is. It's the most earnest record I've heard. So, when I'm feeling like I need some earnest music, what I've been putting on lately is the Beach Boys, and For Those I Love. So yeah.
Different ends of the spectrum. I'll be going to listen to For Those I Love. It sounds unreal. So moving on to your EP, Up the Flats, which is released this summer. There's a massive sense of pride and like community spirit at the core of that.
Yeah.
And so how does your upbringing in Sheriff Street, how do you think that has influenced like the message you want to portray to the world as a musician?
Because I got somewhere where I was told and taught that I would never get. I have a platform now, and I was made believe, and we were all made believe, that we didn't deserve that and we didn't get that. So now I have that. I'm never going to shut up about that, and I'm going to make people on the outside see that we deserve a place here, that we have more character and grit than any education or money or wealth or background could buy you, and no one's going to take that away from me. So yes, it 100% influences it. It's something that I'm so proud of, and it's something that I'm so proud to bring awareness to. Like, there's so much kind of prejudice and oppression that our community and my grandparents and my parents even faced growing up here, that, like, I'm not going to let any like, I'm not going to let that define people's opinion, define where I end up or where I go, and it almost makes me more determined. So, like, I'm like, I have a platform here, and I can't wait to bring anyone else up with me that I can, because the talent down here, the people down here, is just like next level, and from everything, sports people to musicians to, like, Luke Kelly and Stephen Gately came from the street, you know what I mean? And Jim Sheridan, the film director, Pierce O'Leary, the boxer, lives around the corner. Like, it's, we deserve to have a spotlight on us,
Very cool. Mad amounts of talent.
Yeah.
And so on the EP itself, I think in a previous interview you said that, or maybe it was an interview, but each of the songs represents kind of a different perspective. So was that intentional as you're writing the EP, or did that kind of...
Yeah. I wanted to give people a glimpse into life here, into all of its flaws and all of its glory, But I didn't feel, it felt too personal and it felt uncomfortable for me to do that whole thing from my perspective, because these aren't just my stories I'm telling. They're experiences that I've gone through or witnessed, and events that I've witnessed, but they're not really all my stories, they're everyone's stories. So I needed to be able to distance myself from a lot of it, because I didn't want it to be from a personal perspective. And it also really helped me, especially the song Stop the Lights, that's kind of the face of, like, I wanted to give a glimpse to what's behind the anger and the pain in so many men that I've grown up around, and some of them that unfortunately didn't get to grow up around me because they didn't make it to my age. And like, I witnessed that, and I find it really hard to articulate how I still have feelings for somebody that people see as a villain. And I get so almost so like, it's so personal to me that I can't get my point across sometimes, because I feel like I can't articulate myself because I get so wound up about it, you know. So it was much easier for me to step into the shoes of those men because I know them like a second skin. So it was easy for me to step into those shoes and be angry from their perspective because I feel it just like them. So that made more sense to me, and I feel like I was able to tell the stories in a much more clear way because they weren't kind of, you know, wrapped up in any of my kind of personal pain or glory or whatever. You know, I was able to just tell it as it is.
It's good. It's kind of like earlier you said you like to sometimes, not that you're stepping into a character, but you take on a different, completely different.
You can remove yourself from it. So any kind of anger or pain or even the opposite of that, joy, is removed because it's not your perspective anymore. It's not your personal experiences. You're basically telling something like you saw it, you know, not based on your emotions.
Yeah. And so a load of those perspectives are kind of portrayed, well, not portrayed, but you get to see the real life people in your video for Up the Flats, which is so cool. How was it making that, and what, like, had you always had that vision, or did it kind of trickle along?
Like, it was just 2 days of joy because it was kind of just a melting pot of everything and everyone I love just all together. I guess like I just wanted that, like, that's just my day-to-day life, you know. All the kids and all the kids are like my family. The people are my neighbours. You know, I walk that route every day down to the shop and back, and so it was all really. It was basically just like a film crew, and I made sure I looked a bit better than me every day, you know, me everyday self. Like, I mean, it was brilliant. Like, our community is amazing. Like, we've been doing community bingo every Saturday. Well, not now since it's cold, but in the summer we were, and like Emma, who does the bingo, like pulled out our decks and all the road, all the street came out. We had a big party when it was over. Like, everyone was out celebrating, you know, and everyone's asking, when's the video? And when, like, it felt like it was belonged to everyone, and it was, honestly, it was just amazing. I was so lucky to work with Al and Rosie as well. Rosie directed it, and I didn't really have much of a vision for what I wanted for that video. Like, I actually never even thought I would make a video for it. I just kind of, you know, everything just happened so quick with that release. I was just like, right, you know, I genuinely didn't think it would have resonated as much with people who aren't from my area. So I didn't really plan too much after. I didn't plan videos or a physical release or anything. They just came about because I saw it resonate with people, really. And I suppose when Rosie first reached out to me about making the video, I was like, oh, deadly, yeah. And I was like, let's just get, you know, my normal kind of day to day. So we just kind of lined up so that we would all be, you know, in those places on those days. And we did 2 days filming. But it was just brilliant. I loved it. Like,
it's deadly. It's so cool, and it really does portray the, like, sense of community and how much of a family everyone is. Like, it's unreal. So I have a question from one of our committee members who couldn't be here today, but she wanted to know, do you think the music industry is elitist? Like you were saying, how many talented people come from from Sheriff Street and from your area and stuff. And do you think that it's just a lot more complicated for people to enter the music industry, or there's a bad attitude?
I find that one hard to, like, I don't know the answer to that is the answer, but I have some speculations, and I think that it's not so much to do with the music industry. It's to do with society. It's to do with you know, like, I work in I kind of skirt on the edge of, like, I'm in like artistic groups and, you know, scenes and stuff that have all kinds of people. I'm also, like, you know, and then I come home and I'm playing street bingo with me neighbors and stuff, and I'm in a lot of circles and areas where, you know, there aren't really working class people, and when I'm there, I know that there's judgment. I know there's, and I don't feel it towards me, but why would they have it towards me? Because I'm cool and I fit in, and I'm saying all this is in, like, this is the way people portray me. But what I always think about is, you know, I'm a chameleon. Like I can, you know, I fit in at home, and I also fit in, you know, at the backstage at a music gig or a music festival, and I also fit in doing, you know, panel talks for, you know, music and art and culture and stuff. And what about the people that don't? What about the people that don't morph into other scenes or areas as well as I do? What about the people that, you know, work in one area or in one field, and they go elsewhere and they're the sore thumb? You know, they stick out like the sore thumb to you. Are you, will they be afforded the same um attention, energy, space as I am? Because we are the same. And I've had this out so many times where, like, you know, I hear people use slurs and words, and they turn their noses up in front of me, and when I pull them up, it's like, ah, but you're not like. And it's like, no, I am. Like I can also sit at my table, you know, with my family, and you know, like in me thick Dublin accent, and be talking about having an orange for breakfast, and you know, I'm at been at school, and I'm like, that's me. So I feel like there is a bit of a judgment, but I do also feel that coming from any inner city area, you don't have those opportunities or resources handed to you. When I was a kid, I had to fight tooth and nail to search out where could I have these opportunities. I was so lucky that my man that like put everything into me wanting to pursue my hobbies. And you know, some kids don't have the mental capacity in their household to be afforded that, right? And then even the kids that do have the mental capacity and the adults around them, they might not have the money or the resources to bring them to dance classes all the time, you know. I was very, very lucky. I'm aware of that. But I do think that as a kid, had I not been seeking all these things out, had I not had a genuine interest in music and dance, they might not have been offered out to me. And it wasn't to do with my parents. It's because of it's because of society. There's less things offered. There's so many more. Like as a child, like, you know, I witnessed more. Witnessed more people around me, you know, in the depths of heroin addiction than I did people going to dance classes. And that's just the way it pans out. And even now, like, you know, it's more normal for you to that's your norm, and that's what you see more of. And that's sometimes, if you don't have much of a drive, that's what you start to believe is in the cards for you. So I think that's where the problem is. And you can, you know, you can have a bit of a backbone, and you can find out what you like to do, and you can really pursue it like I did, right? But then what about when I got into those spaces and I saw people looking down their nose? Now luckily I didn't care, and I cared a lot actually. But I'm very, very I grew up in Charles Street. I know how to fight my corner, you know. So I didn't let people away with that. But I know a lot of people that probably wouldn't be able to stand up for themselves the way that I did, or you know, they might not have been as driven, so they might have went, oh, I'm just not going to go there because I feel real uncomfortable when I go to that dance class. I didn't. I was like, you know what, like, you're going to try and make my life hell. I'm going to floor you. I'm going to be the best dancer in this place, and you're not going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's kind of like, you know, that's where the issue is. And it's a hard one to point the finger on, because there are people in the music industry that are elitist. You know, there are, but I don't think I'm qualified enough to stand out and say the music industry is the elitist, because I haven't worked in a full spectrum of the industry. And like, you know, the thing is, people aren't elitist to me because they know they won't get away with it. Like, I'm not going to let anybody treat me less than because of where I'm from, or because I'm a woman, or because of any other reason why someone might feel the need. The same way I'm not going to stand there and watch someone else treat someone less than because of any stupid reason. So I don't witness it a lot personally, but I think it's because people know that they won't get away with it with me.
Fair enough. Okay, that was an amazing answer. Thank you. You mentioned your mom as well just there. So I wanted to talk about the excuse me, sorry, your clothes and your outfits.
Oh yeah.
So she designs a lot of your outfits for the gigs and stuff, and I noticed she did some of your merch. Is there any plans for like future proper collaborations or?
Yeah, so like we always collaborate on everything that I do. So let's say like if I have a gig coming up, she'd be like, you know, oh, what you want for that, and she'll make the clothes. Or like with me merch or whatever. Now I have a headline show in April, and she's going to make, we're looking at kind of working on, you know, a proper merch line for them as well. So we're always kind of working together. I have a few kind of, you know, recorded live performances coming up, and she'll be working on the clothes for that. She doesn't know yet, but she normally is told a couple of days before, which I'm sure she loves. But yeah, like we're always kind of, you know, like working on stuff. Like she's actually in there sewing at the minute. So yeah, she's always kind of, you know, right, let me know what you want next and I'll get working on it, or, you know. So yeah, it's kind of an ongoing thing, you know.
Yeah, she's no big choice in the matter, really.
No, and she's so talented. Like she comes from a family of seamstresses, you know, and yeah, she's like amazingly talented at what she does. So she's always kind of like really eager to be working on. I think it's good for her working on something with me as well, because it's a work in progress. It's not like have this ready by that date and that's it. It's like we try it on, we fit it, we mold it, we change it, you know, and that's kind of like the beauty of it as well, is kind of seeing something develop, and not having a clear idea of what it's going to be until you start working on it. And like that's a great process to have in anything, in music and dance, and then to see a piece of clothing start off as something and change completely into something else by the end of the fittings, you know, that's so exciting. I feel so lucky to, like, you know, to have that. And I think I've taken that for granted a lot, because I grew up, like all my aunties were seamstresses. So like even Christmas and all, like I always had my clothes made for Christmas. I always had all my clothes were made for everything. My ma always made me dance costumes and stuff. And it was only like we were laughing there a year ago. She was like, imagine if that happened to me, like you want to learn to sew. And I was like, Jesus, yeah, like, you know, because I can't stitch a button. But yeah, like I definitely am so appreciative of that, you know.
It's so cool, and all the masks and everything, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So cool. So just looking at a few questions left. You mentioned your sold out gig. Well, it is sold out, but you mentioned the gig in Grand Social, which is Devon. With having such a break from live performances and just, well, you've done a few live streams, but live performances in front of crowds and stuff, is there anything you're going to change about your show, or like how you perform, or is you just kind of ready to go in all guns blazing again?
I'm, you know, the lockdown shows were really nice, because I never really do those intimate, like, let's have a few chats in the shows, mainly because I think I would just lose the run of myself and spend the whole hour talking, because as you can tell, I'm a yapper. But I think I really like that part of performing. I really enjoyed the kind of, you know, taking things down a notch, explaining the songs, you know, going in and out, having a back and forth with the audience. So I definitely want to bring that into my shows going forward. But in saying that, like with the way my writing process is, I like to see that my shows are constantly, I won't say evolving, but morphing and meandering into different kind of you know, I liked the way I got to have a bit of time out from such high energy shows, because it made me realise that there's actually a lot of beauty in connecting with an audience on a more intimate level. And, you know, that is a skill that I possessed that I forgot for a while. You know, so yeah, so I guess I do want my shows to constantly morph and meander into different kind of realms, and I always do shows that are kind of more subject to the setting or wherever they are, you know. So probably more of those kind of intimate chill shows will happen down the line, definitely.
Cool, unreal. I know we had one, we put up a post on our Instagram asking if anybody had questions for the interview, and I think somebody commented in about asking if there would be a second date for the Grand Social. So a lot of people are very eager. But
yeah. So this is going out on Wednesday, is it?
Yeah, tomorrow evening. Yeah.
Okay. So, I will on Thursday. I'm going to be announcing more tickets for that date.
Unreal.
Yeah, you'll see when I share it. I don't know if I can really be saying, but yeah, there'll be more tickets. So keep an eye on my Twitter or my Instagram on Thursday, and there will be a few more tickets going on sale. Then.
Unreal. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually missed tickets. Me and my friend were in the library and we tried to get them, and they were
so
I
know it's sold out so quick. You know, the last show that I did here was 50 capacity. And actually only 40, we only sold 44 tickets because you have to, or 46 tickets because there's the bar person and the, you know, because of COVID, we were all included. And that sold out quick, but I understood why that sold out quick because there's only 40 some people, but this was like 250. I was like, whoa, in an hour they were gone. So yeah, if you want to get tickets for the next one, maybe I think I'll be announcing it on Thursday at around 11 o'clock.
Unreal. Okay.
So yeah, eyes on that one. Yeah.
Deadly. Okay, I've got 2 more questions if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you've done loads of collabs. So you're very, as you said, you're a bit of a comedian. You're really good at working with loads of different meads and with different artists. I was just wondering, is there a dream collab that you would love to do in the future?
Oh gosh, yeah, there's a lot. I'm trying to think. I'd love to work with Conducta, producer from the UK. I love his music. Anyone who I love working with Murlo and Swing Ting, who I collaborate with a lot, and DJ Sharda. And I would love to, down the line, I would love to work with Rick Rubin or Pharrell. Just in terms of their skill as a producer. And I don't mean like making beats producer, I mean bringing an artist out of himself. I think it's just, I would love to be in a room with that and experience that. Yeah, there's lots of people, and I'm you know, your brain kind of freezes when you're asked that. But yeah, they're the 2 off the top of my head that I'm like, yeah.
Cool. And
Frank Ocean. Wait, you see now, I'll just start reaming off loads of names.
And then just one final question is about your plans for the future. Are there any new exciting projects coming, or are you going to go try different things?
Yeah, so I'm working on another music project at the minute, like as in another release. I don't know what it's going to be. That's why I'm saying project, whether it's an EP, album, mixtape, single. I don't know. Who knows? I have a few more video. I don't know how many of coming out of from the Up the Flats EP. I'm also looking forward to finishing the documentary that I started making, which spurred off the Up the Flats EP. Hopefully we can get to finish that in the near future. And I'm just working on, I've loads of music bits, you know, happening, performances, gigs, festivals next year and stuff like that. So I'm real excited for that. But mostly I'm looking forward to working on the next music project because I'm working on it at the minute, and like I'm really getting lost in my ideas and music, which is such a nice feeling. It's kind of like, you know, when you're a kid and you're asking your ma for ages, can you have a sleepover with one of your pals? And it's always no, and then finally you're let, and it's like the most magical night ever because you're allowed to. It's like you and your sleepover pal, and it's the best time ever. I get that warm feeling, like that same warm feeling when I spend like a few hours in my room with like no interruptions, just working on these songs, because I don't really know. It's because they feel really personal, do you know that way? So I'm like, it's real exciting for me. So yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to.
Amazing. Okay, you've got loads going on. That's deadly. I'm gonna let Connor pop back in, or Brona, if you guys have any questions before we wrap up. I don't know if you want to have a go.
Hello. That was an awesome chat. That was
deadly
cool to hear. I've got one question for you, if that's okay. I was gonna ask, because you said something at the start of that chat that kind of like resonated with me, because I was like, wow, that's kind of me as well. But you said you were someone that kind of like likes to do it all yourself. It's like very much like what I would do as well. Like I kind of enjoy having like as much control over like a song or whatever that I'm producing. And just like what kind of like challenges like face you when you're doing that kind of thing? Because obviously, you know, you're faced with the limitation of like how much you can necessarily like produce something before you're like, okay, maybe I need to get like a second pair of eyes or ears on this or something. So like, when do you know when to get someone else involved, if that makes sense?
I don't. Like, so basically this year I really learned the beauty of collaboration. When I was working on this EP, I only started recording it in March, and when I was working on that, the first week, I think we had like 4 days maybe of us all in the studio together, and I had myself, I had Brendan Jenkinson, who co-produced the record from Cloud Castle Lake. I was in the studio with him. A harpist, Roshi in Berkeley, and there was a few of us in and out of the studio, and it was amazing. It was like this kind of, you know, little community we had in the studio. Everyone was dipping in and out songs, and you know, it felt very strange to me for someone to just like start playing keys over one of my songs, and you know, your initial thing is like, no, I didn't imagine that there, and then you have to be like, Gemma, listen, this actually sounds deadly, and then you're like, oh yeah, and it took me a couple of days to get into that, and it was the best feeling ever. And then lockdown hit, and we were like, right, we need to leave the studio, and I came back to my room on my own, and I'd nothing to bounce off of. And I never really understood how lonely that was before, because it was all I ever knew. It's always the way I've worked and all my last releases and stuff. And I was like, Jesus, this is rotten now, like going from that environment to this environment, especially because the whole topic of that EP was community, and I really wanted that to translate in the studio. But I feel like the issue is, right, that sometimes when you're working on music and it's just yourself, right, something that I've really learned to respect is like, I'm not always going to be the best version of myself. I'm not always going to be in a good mood. I'm not always going to be, you know, I also work in a school, and sometimes my colleagues come in and some days they're in a great mood, and some days I see they're in a little bit more of a, you know, calm mood, and it doesn't mean they're in a rotten mood or they're horrible or they're mean or anything. Some days they're just not as perfect. So when I come into the studio with myself, because I always think about it as I'm arriving with someone, right? Some days that other part of me is not going to be in the best mood. They're not going to perform well, and they're not going to be really enthusiastic about everything they do. My kind of go-to all the time was whenever I wasn't performing well, or whatever that part of me wasn't, you know, bigging the other part of me up or doing a good job, I would beat it down. I'm like, you know, imagine going into the studio with someone who is miserable all the time, or imagine going into the studio with someone who just was having an off day. You wouldn't turn around to them and be like, here, that's crap, what, get out, what are you doing, stay at that, you know. And this is what I was kind of doing to myself in my inner talk, like, this is shit, this is whatever. And I kind of was like, hang on a minute, like, this kind of expectation of myself isn't really right. Imagine having to go to work every day with someone who's a shithead, and then you have that realization that that's you, you know. And that was a real kind of wake up call for me. It was like, right, I have to, because I'm only working by myself, unless I'm going to decide to constantly have other people with me, I need to treat me as a producer like I'm working with someone else. So I afford those breaks to myself, because sometimes I would work straight through till 4 a.m, no breaks, no dinner, no nothing, because it's going great, right? You're like, oh, this is going deadly, I don't need a break. No, I always make sure I give myself a break. If things aren't going well, I go for a walk for half an hour. You know, and in the same way that sometimes, like, I have this thing, right, one of me guilty pleasures is I'll go down rabbit holes and rabbit holes of loose women. Like, there is not a loose women video on the internet that I haven't seen, right? And I don't know what it is. I think it's just that mindless. I love listening to like women talk, and I think it like reminds me of sitting at my nanny's table years ago. It gives me a bit of comfort. And when things aren't going well for me, right, me go-to things, like I'd put on a video of loose women and be like, you know, you'll never believe what Stacey said when she heard this, right? So I'm like, oh, what did Stacey say? So I go and I look at that, and then I go and I watch more, and all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by, and then I'm extra angry at myself. I'm like, hang on a minute, you didn't get that done. You know everything about Stacey and loose women. You know what are you doing with yourself? And it's like, in the same way, right? I'll have that level of respect for myself. Right? In the same way, I wouldn't expect my colleague to, you know, keep trying the same thing when it's not working. I wouldn't expect my colleague to go all day without breaks. I wouldn't expect my colleague to receive abuse off me. But I also wouldn't allow my colleague to go and DOS and take a 4-hour lunch break watching loose women while I'm left doing the work.
Yeah.
So it's about having that balance, you know. There's loads of little things. Like I think if you find inspiring videos, like, you know, of artists that you like watching, interviews, watch one of them instead of watching something else before you go in the studio, and you'll be pumped, you know. But it's tough working by yourself. But I think, you know, knowing when to delegate as well. You know, I have a tendency to spend like 5 hours on mixing a hi-hat, and it's like, that's not my forte. Like, why am I doing that? I have friends who are incredible sound designers who I often get on to them and be like, here, will you rework that beat for me? And just knowing when to delegate and what to delegate, you know, and letting ears in, don't get too precious. I struggle with that still. But yeah, I think you need to be consistent with checking in on your own workflow when you're working by yourself. Otherwise you can become toxic, like you're in a toxic relationship with yourself, you know, and you're like, right, I need to, yeah.
That was a really cool answer. Thank you.
Rona, do you have a question?
You there?
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, you're
great. Yes. Oh my God, I have so many questions, Gemma.
Great.
I'll try to limit them a little bit. There's kind of two. So I'm just wondering, do you remember like making a conscious decision to keep your accent? Because even just from like I'm thinking from a personal point of view, like when I moved up to Dublin for college, like people are so openly like, if you sound different, people will like laugh at you. You know what I mean? So and then there's always that kind of then pressure from that to like soften.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, did you like decide like no?
No, not really. I think I did an awful lot of neutralizing when I was younger, you know. I was going to like ballet and stuff in you know, over in areas that wasn't my area, where I was the only one that talked the way that I did, and it would be pointed out to me a lot. And I always remember though, even like I remember I was on the Late Late Show when I was a kid. Like I did like I was on the Toy Show, and I remember my dance teacher saying to me before I went on, and make sure you speak nice. So I was constantly, and like I would always be told, make sure you speak nice. Like, you know, if you're doing this thing, if you're going on stage, if you're doing this, make sure you speak nice. Sometimes even by my family, because it's fed into us that the way we speak isn't nice. Like that we're common, and that's not proper, and that's not nice. So like, you know, I had me telephone voice, and I had me on stage voice, and I had me, you know, so I was constantly, you know, whenever I was in spaces that wasn't my own, I felt like I had to speak nice, and I had to, you know, be not common. I felt like I grew up feeling like common was a bad thing. I love our accent now. Like all my nieces and nephews and stuff, I'd be like, you know, I love the way they talk. And I just think it's so rich, and it's only kind of, I moved to Liverpool, and it was while being there that I just started to really appreciate where I'm from. And you know, like my accent is a badge from where I'm from. Like it's a badge of honor, so why should I be neutralizing it, you know? And when I was writing music before, my accent was a little bit more neutral. And I'm not saying that I'll never sing like that again, but it's not really a conscious decision. It's like the Beatles. Like they didn't choose to be singing in American accents. It's what they listened to and what they were influenced by. So naturally, when they sing that stuff as well, like the Irish, like, so I study vocal technique, and like the Irish accent doesn't really do well for a lot of power notes. You know, when you are singing anything that has an open vowel, like an ah or an O, it's a lot harder to sing. We have a lot of ahs hard, you know, like we have a lot of like ah sounds. They are really hard to sing when you're belting something. So just a natural way for you to kind of change your voice when you're singing those soul songs or whatever songs that I didn't write that have mad, you know, belty stuff in them. You just sing them the way you listen to them. Now with this particular EP, it was me everyday chat. Like I'd be sitting what I wrote in those EPs is the stuff that made me ma talk about sitting at the table, the stuff that made me friends talk about. So I was just dressing me every day, chatting music. So it would have been very weird for me to neutralize my accent, you know. Like I'm not going to start saying up the flats, you know what I mean? Like that's not the way I say it. I'd really notice that, you know, that way. So so yeah, like a lot of it it kind of happened. It happened just because of the content, I think. But now I am very aware to not neutralize my accent. And like, look, that's something that I really struggle with. I find whenever I go into places where I'm a little bit nervous, and I don't mean intimidated as in intimidated because of where I'm from or anything like that. Intimidated, and no, if you ever go for an interview, if you're going to, like, you know, I even find, like, say if I'm doing a workshop, because I do a lot of stuff with kids, I have to remind myself, Gemma, don't, like, stop trying to speak nice. Like, there's nothing nicer about the way you talk. You know, you're actually more fake doing that. So shut up, like, but it's kind of ingrained in me, and I constantly, and I hope one day that I'll fully get out of that, and I'll stop feeling like because I know now that I don't have to neutralize my accent. I know that my accent isn't going to make me any more proper. Me changing my accent isn't going to make me any more, you know, well-to-do or whatever. I am who I am, and I'm proud of that, and I think that's more than enough. But you do have that thing. It's like the telephone voice, isn't it? When you pick up, you're like, hello, you know, that's what it is, and it's just trying to get that out. So I like you're saying, like when you come up to Dublin, and you kind of like, you'll probably always feel when you go into a room, you'll have that thing where you can't help. It's like your natural instinct is to neutralize yourself a little bit more. But I think just sitting into, like, when I talk in me thick accent, I hear me nannies, and I hear, and I'm like, that's like, you know, it makes me want, it's almost, it has a bit of nostalgia attached to it, and it's like, that's what, I don't want that to fade away or disappear. So why am I neutralizing that? That's my unique selling point. That's how people differentiate me. Just, you know, like, so just embrace it as much as you can, and, you know, anyone that makes you feel like you need to be neutralizing your accent is a dope anyway. So, you know, yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, that's just really funny, because I even noticed, like, once lockdown started and I went back home to Laois, I heard it so much more, like when I'm surrounded by like friends from home or whatever, like it's like times 100, and it was actually kind of nice to notice that. I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, you know. But yeah, no, it was really nice. Just kind of as a follow-up, I'm sorry, I know.
No, you're grand. Yeah.
But you were kind of saying that it was a nice surprise, kind of that Up the Flat seemed to like resonate with so many people who weren't necessarily like from like North Dublin or whatever. I'm wondering, like, is there then is it almost kind of strange, funny even, that when like people from all these different walks of life, they're going to be like chanting Up the Flats, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, I kind of jokingly the other day said like cultural appropriation, but I just wonder how you feel about that.
No, I love that. You know what? Like, the flats are for everyone. The people in my area were never discriminatory, like, or what's the right word for that? You know, they were never coverages about their space or their area or their community. We only became like that because it's been torn from under our feet by developers, and it's been slandered all the time in the press for years. We've no support from authorities, politicians, media, nothing. And I think because of that, we became very protective of each other. But now, like, you know, other places have excluded us. We weren't welcome in other places, while the people from those places were infiltrating us and taking what we had and using it as there's no such thing as you know, like for me, I was selling me masks one time, and the girl was like, oh, I really want the mask to come up at a gig, but is it cultural appropriation? I was like, absolutely not. Like, this is for everyone. You've no idea how happy it makes me to think that someone is out in Black Rock singing Up the Flats. Like, that's what we wanted for years. I want people to listen to us. I want people to sing that with pride and know that that's not common, and it's not any less nice than anyone with a posh accent, you know. And I don't mean posh in a negative way. I just mean a posh accent. You know, I that really warms my heart. And it's like, you are making a child who might have felt insecure because their accent, whatever, you're making them feel comfortable and included, because you're celebrating the thing that they feel so warm about, that actually has never been celebrated by anyone outside of our community. It's only been slandered. So for me, no, I feel like this is what we wanted. We've been shouting for years and no one is listening. And now people are finally listening in the form of my songs, and people are singing those words. And if people are chanting Up the Flat, it means that they've listened to that song enough to probably hear a few of the lyrics. And to hear lyrics like, you know, like to hear someone writing a love letter to their area, an area that has been slandered so much, and it must make them really realize, God, this must be a special community. To think, you know, to hear someone saying we actually had nothing, but we had it all, because all we needed was each other. And, you know, stuff like finding laugh in the middle of the violence, and, you know, like all of that stuff, to me is like, if people are picturing that in their heads and it's resonating with them in some way, my job is done. And, you know, I love that. So no one should ever feel like they can't sing that song. I wouldn't make songs for people to feel like they can't sing along, you know, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The flats is a state of mind. The flats is in your soul. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't live in a flat anymore. I live in the houses that were built in Sheriff Street. So the flats were knocked down and they built houses. So we moved out of the flats when they were knocked down, live in the house. I'm still from the flat. I still have it in me. I still have that sense of community. And, you know, like, it kind of doesn't really matter where you're from or where you are. You can still celebrate, you know, you can still celebrate working class culture and communities, you know. So it's a free for all. You're all welcome.
Thank you.
You guys have any other questions or?
No,
No?
that was just such a cool talk. You're so cool.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you. That was lovely.
I'm just going to stop recording now.